Welcome back to Call of the Wild the Angler. In this video we are going through how to easily catch largemouth bass. I recently jumped onto this game and I had quite a struggle catching any fish at all. So I sat there, messed around with the tackle, bought some stuff from the shop, went to different fishing areas, and I managed to come up with a decent enough setup so that you can actually bring in some largemouth bass. You will catch other species as well. You'll also see some smallmouth bass. But if we start this off with taking a look at the handbook, for the largemouth bass, my biggest is a silver at the moment. The habitats for them are lake shores, shallow lakes and deep lakes. And it says the bait and lure preferences are frogs, spinnerbaits and poppers. If we look at the traits, the largemouth bass is aggressive, so it goes directly for a strike without nibbling. They like jumping out of the water, and when they are close to getting caught, they fight with renewed vigor. However, if we take a look at my rod setup, I don't use the frogs, I don't use the poppers. I am running the Brass Monkey rod. It's a spinning rod, it's got a 10 kilo strength, max line strength is 4 kilos. Then the power, length and action don't matter too much. Then we look at the reel, it's a spinning reel, max drag 4 kilos, strength 2.5. It's got a 6:1 gear ratio, and you'll see the max line capacity is 60 meters, which doesn't matter too much. Then it's 0.30 millimeters. So the line I'm using is the mono. It's got a 4 kilo strength. It's a 0.28 millimeter diameter. It's got a moderate abrasion resistance and it's got high visibility. Some fish will be easily spooked if you're using a high visibility line. So that's why visibility is a thing. Some will see the line, so they'll just swim away. They won't be interested. And this is all about being patient. You're not guaranteed to catch every single cast. It can sometimes take a very, very long time. I was sat here for over an hour figuring out the most efficient way I could find to catch largemouth bass. But then we look at the lure I'm using, and if we go to the journal and we take a look at largemouth bass, if we go to the bottom of the paragraphs, it says that they enjoy a good number of baits and lures, but leeches and frogs are the best to target these fish. For your spinning tackle, if you use a frog lure, or for your float tackle, you use a leech, hook size 6 is the best way to target the fish. However, the lure that I use is the spinner bait with a hook size 8. This is a sinking lure. The frog is a top water, so it never sinks. It always stays on the surface. But I've had way more luck using a spinnerbait, and it's not size 6. They recommend using size 6, but I'm using size 8, and I've had a lot more luck catching just the fish in general, but also the largemouth bass. So if we take a very quick look in the shop before we head to our location, and I show you a couple of catches. If we go to buy, the Brass Monkey is here. It's going to cost you 500. The scope reel is going to cost you 480. The mono line I'm using will cost you 225. And then the size 8 spinner bait is going to cost you 150. So it's not too expensive for a setup. And it's by far the best that I have found. It's all about, like when you go fishing, it's all about patience, but it's about knowing what's best to use. And I've used multiple different lures. I'll show you the ones that I've used for largemouth bass. If we go to rods, we click on this. I've used the size 2 frog, I've used the size 2 popper, I've used the size 2 spinnerbait. I've tried a couple of size 6s, but my best has been the size 8 spinnerbait. The good thing about this game is if you're not getting on with some of your tackle, you can sell it. However, you do lose a lot of money. But you also have to make sure with this that everything in your tackle is compatible. So if I tried using a line that's got the strength of 6 kilos, it's not compatible with this rod. But not only that, if I was to use line that was over 0.3 millimeters or 0.30, it's not going to work. The diameter would be too big to work with the reel. And then when it comes to catching fish, you're looking to bring the fish in, obviously, but some people will get satisfaction out of having a fight with the fish. If we look at my gear, the max line strength is 4 kilos, but this rod has a strength of 10 kilos. The strength on this reel is 2.5, then the strength on the line is 4. So anything over 2.5 kilos, and my reel's going to start struggling a little bit. And each different part of your tackle will struggle separately. So it's good to try and keep them in the balance if possible. Because obviously using this setup, I could go for a 10 kilo fish with my rod. I could go for a 4 kilo with the line. But because of the reel, I can only go for 2.5. Like, you can go for fish that are heavier than that, but you're going to have a big fight that's not always necessary. Because you can bring in fish, anything up to 2.5 kilos, and I should be able to just reel it in. There shouldn't be any struggles with it. But always make sure that you're trying different lures, you're trying different setups, you've got good strength, because you might go fishing off the back of a boat and you're catching like 20, 30 pound monsters. And you might be struggling all the time because your gear's only capable of like handling 12-pound fish. So always try and keep your tackle up to date. Try different lures. If you're float fishing, try different baits and stuff. But that is the setup I am running for the largemouth bass. And if you take a look at the map, we're going to head over to here because I had an objective to come here and catch. I think it was a largemouth bass. I just had to catch one. And this is where I sat and spent a lot of time using different tackle setups to bring them in. I'm going to go to this trailhead, grab my vehicle, and we'll head over to this area. We'll set ourselves up and we'll go fishing. And there we go. We have another bite. It's taken a little while to get this one. And reeling it in. This one is a beautiful bronze largemouth bass, 1.36 kilos. So there are lots of different techniques you can use. You can use jigging, twitching. You can also use stop and go or constant. But if you have a look, if we release that fish, if you have a look at the... Let's go to the rod section and you have a look. It says here, spinnerbait, techniques constant. Then with the frog, constant, stop and go, twitching. Constant, stop and go, twitching. Then constant. So you're going to have a better chance to catch fish using the constant technique with the spinnerbait. So you have to cast the rod. You have to let it sink and then bring it back up constantly. Keep it on a slow reel speed. And so right now it's 2 meters. Bring it all the way up constantly. Let it come to the surface. And then once we reach the surface, leave it at like 0.2, 0.3 meters. Let it drop again. Then constantly reel it in. And you'll see that it pops up with your technique above that yellow bar that's going across. So let it drop again now. Then slowly, constantly bring it back in. And then we'll let it drop again. And then just slowly, as you're reeling in, if the fish are interested, they will come, they'll have a nibble. Or in a bass's idea, they will just come and take the bait, like the lure, straight away. And then it wasn't a largemouth, but that was the following cast we pulled in a smallmouth. So you're going to catch a fish if you understand the techniques, the tackle you're using, the location you're in, the fish that you're targeting. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just about chucking your line in the water and reeling in a fish. I sat there for a little while trying some twitching, some jigging, just wasn't having any luck. And then you go back to constant, you go for the technique that's best used with that lure, and you increase your chances to catch. So all I've been doing is I'm still running the size 8 spinnerbait. I'm just casting it in, looking for the splashes and stuff. And I'm just bringing it to the surface very slowly. And when it's at the surface, letting it go like half a meter or something like that. Then letting it drop again. Bringing it back in slowly on the 1x reel speed. When it gets to the surface, again, just letting it come along a little bit. Then letting it drop again. And if there's a fish around the area, if they're interested, they're going to take a bite. And just over to my left-hand side there was a splash. So what I'm going to do is once this line's in, I'm going to switch my spot. 'Cause you don't have to stand still. Oh, we've got another bite on this cast. So that's 3 consecutive casts we've had a bite. And it's resulted in, it's a juvenile, so it's tiny, 0.2 kilos. But that's 2 largemouth and a smallmouth in 3 casts. But I saw that splash over to my left-hand side, so I'm going to come over this way. I'm going to get off these rocks. I'm going to stand here. And we might not be lucky, we might not be successful. But I am just going to put it on a 1x reel speed. Let it sink, bring it up. Just use the constant technique. Let it go about half a metre or so when it's on the surface. Drop it again. Just rinse and repeat and catch some fish. And there you go. That's 4 casts in a row we've had a bite. So we're going to bring this in. And this catch is a bronze smallmouth bass. Only 11 score. But it's a little over half a kilo. And there we go. So there's some different fish you can catch. It's not always going to be the same one. There might be a bait you're using or a lure you're using. There might be 6 different species that want to have a little nibble. And they want you to catch them for whatever reason. Fish can be really, really stupid. But using the setup I was using, so that's the brass monkey rods, the scope reel, the 4 kilo purple mono, and the size 8 spinnerbait, you might even have more luck than that using the size 6. You might bring in some bigger fish. You never know. It's all about testing different tackles and fishing in different areas. But my recommendation is just get used to the technique. Understand the technique you're using to try and catch the fish, the tackle you're using, the spot you're in. Always look for the splashes. But at the same time, you need to be careful because there are fish that are going to be very easily spooked. They're not as aggressive or anything like that. So there's lots of different factors that come into it. But that was 4 successful casts back to back. 4 in a row that landed us a fish. So that is how to easily catch largemouth bass. Obviously, you're not guaranteed every single time. But that's how to easily catch largemouth bass in Call of the Wild the Angler. And that is going to do it for this video. Check out this video if you want to see other content on the channel. I will see you in the next one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.